Good evening, everyone. We will now begin the evening service of the Miroku Association headquarters, expressing our gratitude to God and Meishu-sama for blessings and protection received while participating in the construction of paradise on earth. Amatsu-Norito and Miroku Prayer, please stand. Taka amagara ni kamsumarimasu. Kamurami kamurami no mikoto mochite sumemi oya kamuri sanagi no mikoto tsukushi no himuka no tachihana dono ahagi harani misogi harai tamo toki ni narimaseru Harai dono kami tachi moro moro no magagoto tsumike gare o Harai tamae kiyome tamae tomao suto tono yoshio Amatsu kami kunitsu kami aoyorozu no kami tachi tomoni ame no fuchi koma no mimi uritate te kikoshin meseto kashikomi mo maozu Miroku o mikami mamori tamae saki hae tamae Miroku o mikami mamori tamae saki hae tamae Oshie miyaya nushi no kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae Oshie miyaya nushi no kami mamori tamae saki hae tamae Kannagara tamachi haemase Kannagara tamachi haemase Great God of light, creator and giver of all life, in accordance with your divine will, the long age of night draws to an end. Your radiant divine light, shining ever more brilliantly, awakens the dawn of the glorious age of light, a time long awaited by all humanity. We thank you for guiding us to your divine plan and for the privilege of channeling and receiving Johrei. May our spirits and bodies be illuminated and purified as we live your truth given to us by Meishu-sama. Make us pure and effective instruments of your divine light, so that we may serve you and all those with whom we come in contact. May paradise on earth be realized, with health, peace, and prosperity, a reality in our lives. Great God of light, bless and protect us. Radiate our souls with your divine light, so that we may truly become instruments of your great plan. Please be seated. We will now receive Group Johrei. Johrei is now concluded. We will now listen to a reading from Meishu-sama's teaching. Turning to God. As I recall my past experiences, they were frightful times. I was lost, wandering in darkness, without God's staff to lean upon. I discovered I was approaching a precipice when it was illuminated by God's light. Now I can see everything clearly. Now that the light of God has awakened me, I no longer dwell on my past unhappiness. It was all created by my own folly. After taking a brief membership course, anybody can receive the sacred focal point and start transmitting the divine light to themselves and to others. This divine light, Johrei, starts to gradually remove the spiritual clouds from a person's spiritual body, as well as from those of their home and family, bringing about health, peace, and prosperity. If you continue to faithfully practice Johrei for some time, you and your entire family will become healthier until illness is virtually eliminated. Under the guidance and illumination of God's divine light, everything will go smoothly and everyone will begin to live happy and joyous lives.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the evening service of the Miroku Association headquarters. This evening, I want to share this faith experience to you from Idalina Fernandez Neves. She's from Neves Johrei Center, Santo Tomé and Príncipe, Africa. Idalina is a Johrei member and was introduced to our church in 2015 in Santo Tomé and Príncipe through her mother-in-law, who is also a member. The reasons for her being guided were nighttime disturbances, illness, financial difficulties, and conflict. Regarding the nighttime disturbances, every night she felt a noise above their house that prevented both of them, she and her husband, from sleeping. They would get up the next day tired and indisposed. One night, while Idalina and her 3-month-old baby girl were sleeping, her husband was watching TV. Around midnight, when he was going to bed, he woke her up, all scared, and asked, "Honey, where is the baby?" She replied, "The baby is sleeping." She got up from bed, startled and shaky. They searched the whole house for the child and found her completely naked under the bed, practically dead. They picked her up, went to the mother-in-law, that barely picked up the child and said, "This child's condition can't be dealt with at home. Let's go to a hospital." Once there, the hospital in Lemba sent them to a central hospital, but the child did not resist and died. With the transition of that child, their situation, which was already bad, got worse. In addition, a lump appeared in her breast, which turned into a wound. She went to the local hospital, and there the nurse, on the second day of treatment, told her, "Your breast issue is a complicated cause because it is turning into a cancer." The nurse continued, "I advise you to look for a full healer because this is not normal. They killed your daughter and continued their spell on you by giving you breast cancer." Dalina left there shocked and in despair went to her mother-in-law to tell her what had happened and the nurse's advice. Her mother-in-law said, "You're not going to any folk healer. Tomorrow you're going to the Johrei Center to receive light." The next day she didn't go to the hospital for a bandage. She got up very early, went to the Johrei Center in Neves, and started to receive Johrei from 6 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. The other day, after receiving Johrei, she went to the hospital to get a bandage, and the nurse, surprised, said, "Whoa, which healer did you go to? Your breast is almost cured." Idalina replied, "I went to no healer. Yesterday I went to the Johrei church to be prayed for, and that's why I didn't come for a bandage." The nurse, astonished, said, "Church? Don't leave this church, all right? Hold it tight to it. No need to go back to more bandages. Stay in that church." Idalina's mother, upon hearing about her daughter's illness, paid a visit and wanted Idalina to go to a folk healer. When she didn't accept the suggestion, her mother said, "You have already lost a child, and now you are the one who is sick. Instead of going to a healer, you are listening to your mother in law, trusting that the church will cure you." Thanks to the Supreme God and Meishu-sama, by receiving intensive Johrei, she managed to overcome the problems that plagued her. 3 months later, she got pregnant again. Everything went wonderfully well and without any problems until the day of delivery at the hospital in Lemba. Once there, given the position the baby was in, they took Idalina to the central hospital in the country's capital. When she arrived there, she was taken immediately to the delivery room, and the service team who attended her noticed that the child was in an inverted position close to the stomach. They tried by all means in their power to reverse the baby's position, but they failed. They called a specialist who, after assessing the situation, decided for a C-section, considering that in the position the baby was in, only through a surgical intervention could the survival of both lives be guaranteed. Idalina's mother-in-law was with her, and upon hearing this, she said in a loud voice, "With the power of the Messiah Meishu-sama, she will not need a C-section." And continued, "Messiah Meishu-sama, please, you are the savior of humanity. Do not allow your child to have this surgery." And as if she was possessed, she took a handkerchief and began to shake Idalina's belly, praying the Amatsu-Norito and channeling Johrei, while waiting for the medical procedures to be initiated. To everyone's surprise, the baby, who was in the womb with his head turned towards his mother's stomach, miraculously turned around to the right position. The baby was born without the intervention of the medical team, right there on the floor of the waiting room. Both the doctor and the nurses who were preparing to take her to the operating room were astonished by the baby's birth and said it could only be a miracle. One of the nurses said, "You have faith in believing your God, huh? The boy didn't want to be born in our hands, but in the hands of this Meishu-sama." Because of this, during the 3 days she was hospitalized, whenever her mother-in-law would visit, a nurse would ask for Johrei, saying, "Make this whatever healing for me." Days after the baby was born, Idalina fell into the lack of gratitude and stopped going to the church. Her mother-in-law, when she realized the situation, asked her, "Aren't you going to church?" And Idalina would reply, "Oh, because I don't have any problems anymore. What I'm going to go to church for?" And what's even more disappointing is that she started instead to attend another religious congregation. As a warning from her ancestors, all the suffering she had before she first came to our church, such as constant pains, insomnia, cold sweats, swollen legs, her child being constantly sick, among other sufferings, they all came back. Her mother-in-law used to say to her, "You are suffering because of your lack of gratitude." Since her suffering was so great, she had no choice but to return to Meishu-sama. With her return to our church, the suffering seemed to become even more severe. Even receiving Johrei and participating in other dedications, nothing changed. It was only when she began to materialize donations towards the construction fund of their headquarters and for receiving the Ohikari, then miraculously everything changed for the better. Now she works without any problems, sleeps peacefully, and feels very happy. The 7th of November of this year was marked in her life for having received from the Messiah Meishu-sama the permission to be utilized as an instrument to save lives. But at the same time, it left her with a feeling of a sadness because her mother, who departed to the spiritual realm before her transition, had asked Idalina several times to channel Johrei to her. She couldn't because she didn't have the Ohikari yet, due to her stubbornness, as her mother-in-law often tried to inspire her to receive the sacred focal point. But she didn't want to listen to her mother-in-law. Now she feels guilty because if she had received this sacred Ohikari at that time, who knows? She could have been utilized by Meishu-sama to prolong her mother's life. Now she only misses her. Thus, she asks all non-members who are regular visitors to try to take the membership classes as soon as possible so they don't happen to pass what she went through. She learned that Meishu-sama is really the Messiah awaited by humanity, and that we will only be happy if we help make other people happy. Her commitment is to take care of others just as they took care of her. Idelin is very thankful to God and Meishu-sama for the permission to be introduced to this path of salvation. Thank you very much for listening to this wonderful faith experience. I wish you a very wonderful evening and a blessed weekend. Thank you very much.
This brings to a conclusion our evening service. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a blessed evening.